Okay, let's be real. We're all living in a world that's just buzzing with notifications, right? It's endless. And the ability to actually focus, it feels like it's getting rarer and rarer. But what if I told you that one skill isn't just about getting more done, but it's the key to actually thriving in today's economy? Well, that's what we're digging into today. This idea of deep work, which Newport calls the superpower for the 21st century. So let's get into the art of focus and how to escape what's called the shallows. Now, this idea of carving out a special place just for intense, deep thinking, it's not new at all. Actually, some of the biggest thinkers in history basically built their entire lives around it. And to really get what that looks like, we're going to jump back in time a bit to the 1920s, to a little village on a lake in Zurich, and the story of the psychiatrist Carl Jung.
You gotta understand, Jung wasn't just on some relaxing vacation here. No way. He was in a massive intellectual battle, trying to break away from his famous mentor, Sigmund Freud, and start his own school of thought. That's high stakes. So to pull that off, he knew he had to think deeply. What did he do? He built this stone retreat, his tower, with no electricity, and he'd lock himself away for 2 hours every single morning, just to concentrate. He wasn't running away from his work, he was doubling down on it.
And this story, it perfectly sets up the two kinds of work we're all juggling. On one hand, you've got deep work. That's the Jung stuff, right? It's that intense, totally distraction-free concentration where you're pushing your brain to its limits. It's how you create brand new value. And then there's the other side, shallow work. You know what this is. It's all the logistical stuff, clearing your inbox, those endless status meetings, posting on social media. It's the kind of work you can do while you're distracted, it doesn't really challenge you, and honestly, almost anyone could do it.
So, which one of those two buckets does most of our time fall into? I think you know the answer, but the data is, well, it's pretty staggering. A McKinsey study found that the average knowledge worker, that's probably you and me, spends over 60% of their week on things like electronic communication and just searching the internet. Basically, we're spending most of our time in the shallows, acting like human routers, just passing information back and forth. And get this, almost a third of our time is spent just on email. Wild.
And look, this isn't just about having a few bad habits. The really crucial takeaway here is that by constantly living in this state of, as Newport calls it, frenetic shallowness, we're literally rewiring our brains. We're training ourselves for distraction. It's like we're chipping away at our own ability to concentrate, which makes it harder and harder to do the work that actually matters. And this shift in our work culture, it's having huge economic consequences.
Okay, so what are these big economic consequences we're talking about? Let's dive into this idea of the Great Economic Divide. A couple of MIT economists, Brynjolfsson and McAfee, they argue that we're right at the beginning of what they call a great restructuring. Basically, technology is just shooting forward at this incredible pace, but our skills, they're not keeping up. And that's creating this massive divide in the job market.
Now, it's not all doom and gloom. The thing is, while new tech is going to make some jobs disappear or easy to outsource, it's also going to make other people more valuable than they've ever been. The economy is basically splitting in two. You've got one group of people who are falling behind the machines and another group who are absolutely thriving with them. So, the big question is, how do you make sure you're in that second group?
Well, these economists pointed to three specific groups who are really poised to thrive. First, you've got the high-skilled workers. These are the people who can work creatively with all the new intelligent machines. Think data scientists, for example. Second, you have the superstars. These are the absolute best of the best in their field because now their talent can be accessed from anywhere on the globe. And third, well, there are the owners, the people with the money to actually invest in all this new tech.
All right, so let's talk about how you can join the winners. Now, unless you've got a secret for getting rich quick, that owner category is probably a long shot for most of us, right? But those other two groups, the high-skilled workers and the superstars, those are within reach. And the path to getting into those groups, you guessed it, it's paved with deep work.
So what does it take? It really boils down to two core abilities you've got to have. Number one, you have to be able to master hard things and do it quickly. I mean, think about it. The skills that matter today probably won't be the same ones that matter in a few years. So if you can't learn on the fly, you're going to fall behind. And number two, it's not enough just to know stuff. You have to be able to produce at an elite level. We're talking top-tier quality and top-tier speed. And this is really the whole point. Both of those things, learning hard stuff fast and producing amazing work, they both depend completely on your ability to do deep work. It's that simple. If you can't focus without getting distracted, you're just not going to be able to do either one of those things very well.
In fact, you can think of it like a simple formula. High-quality work is equal to the time you spend multiplied by your intensity of focus. See, most of us just focus on the time spent part. We think, oh, I just need to work more hours. But we completely forget about the multiplier, that intensity of focus. If you can crank that intensity way up, you can get way more done and better quality work in the exact same amount of time.
And this brings us to what Cal Newport calls the deep work hypothesis. Think about it. The ability to do deep work is becoming more and more valuable, right? But at the exact same time, it's becoming more and more rare because our whole world is built on distraction. So what happens when something is super valuable but also super rare? That's where the opportunity is. The few people who actually build the skill, they're the ones who are going to absolutely thrive.
Okay, so let's get into the science of elite performance. Because this isn't just a nice self-help idea. There's real science behind why deep work is so powerful, coming from fields like performance psychology and even neuroscience.
When you want to master something really difficult, you can't just noodle around. You have to engage in something called deliberate practice. And what that means is you're focusing your attention really tightly on one specific skill, you're getting feedback on how you're doing, and then you're using that feedback to correct your approach. And the key thing is, deliberate practice cannot happen when you're distracted. It's the total opposite of that. It absolutely demands intense focus.
So what's actually going on inside your head when you do this? It's pretty amazing. When you focus that intensely, you're firing the same brain circuit over and over again. And that repetition signals certain cells in your brain to wrap a substance called myelin around those neurons. Think of it like putting insulation on a wire. It makes the signal travel faster and more efficiently. So, by working deeply, you are literally, physically, building that skill into your brain's hardware.
All right, but what about just switching tasks? I mean, we all kind of know multitasking is a myth, but what's the big deal about a quick peek at your email or a quick scroll through a social feed? It feels totally harmless, right? Well, it turns out there's a pretty big hidden cost to doing that.
The concept is called attention residue, and it's exactly what it sounds like. When you switch from one task to another, say from writing a report to checking your email, your brain doesn't just cleanly switch over. A little piece of your attention gets left behind, like a residue, still thinking about the report. And that residue makes you worse at the new task. So that quick check of your inbox, it leaves this cognitive gunk that slows you down and hurts your performance when you go back to the important stuff.
So the takeaway here is pretty simple, but it's huge. If you want to produce at your absolute peak level, the kind of stuff that superstars produce, you have to do everything you can to minimize that attention residue. And that means you have to be intentional about it. You have to design your days to have long, uninterrupted blocks of time to focus on just one thing. Peak performance isn't something that just happens, it's a direct result of working deeply.
Okay, so let's put all this together. What does this mean for you? It means that in a world that is practically built to distract you, your ability to go deep isn't just another productivity trick. It is a massive, undeniable competitive advantage.
Now, all of these ideas we've been talking about, they come from Cal Newport's fantastic book, Deep Work. And he makes a really important point. The benefits here go way beyond just your job. He says a deep life isn't just about making more money. It's about living a life that feels well lived. By choosing to focus on what really matters and tuning out all the noise, you don't just become more productive, you actually build a richer, more meaningful life.
And that's really the bottom line. In an economy that's basically embracing distraction with open arms, your ability to go deep, that's your superpower. Think about it. Most people are actually eroding their ability to focus. They're all in on open offices, constant pings, always being connected. So when you choose to resist that, when you intentionally carve out time to build your ability to concentrate, you are developing a skill that is incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. It really is the superpower you need to succeed today. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. In a world that is designed to keep you distracted, to keep you in the shallows, what could you create? What could you build? What could you become if you really made the commitment to go deep?